Hi guys, it is my birthday today. So for this very special occasion, we're gonna do 3 stories of haunting, ghost horror stories about birthdays that happened on your birthday. So grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and grab a few candles for me. 'Cause this time, I'm getting old. And that's honestly the scariest thing I've ever said. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday. When I was 9 years old, we lived in a 3-bedroom house that has a big front and backyard. Nothing was odd or weird going on at the first few months after we moved in. As the months go by, I started feeling that something is wrong, or something was going on inside and around the house. I would hear footsteps in the hallway when no one was there. I would see the bathroom lights turning on and off by themselves even when no one was using it. The electric fan was on even when it wasn't even plugged. The chandelier would sway back and forth for no apparent reason. It got worse at night, especially when we were all asleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see by my bedroom door a woman slowly floating away. I would see shadows even when the lights were off. I once saw a woman in white in my backyard just staring at the full moon. Finally, one night, I woke up, and at the foot of my bed was a woman staring outside my bedroom window. I thought it was my mom, so I called out, "Mom?" The woman turned around and she smiled at me. Then she said, "Happy birthday." Because I was so drowsy with sleep that I just said, "Thanks." The following morning, I asked my mom if she was in my bedroom and greeted me with "Happy birthday." My mom said, "No, I wasn't in your bedroom this morning or last night." I don't want to know who was in my bedroom that night. We moved out of that house after 3 years. The family that moved in after us had worse experience than us. But that's another story. Music birthday card. Happy birthday. When I was 5 years old, I'm 13 now, my parents bought a single-story house near New Haven, Connecticut. It was a pretty small house, and the weird part was that my parents bought a lot of furniture, but the small house still seemed empty. Other than that, to me it seemed normal. In fact, for the first 3 months of living there, I didn't see even anything weird. I didn't see a little ghost girl, I didn't hear any voices calling my name, and I didn't see objects fly across the rooms all by themselves. This was a normal house. Or at least that's what I thought. 4 months after moving in, my parents got me a 2-year-old golden retriever called Bessie. Bessie avoided certain spots in the house, like the hallway near my parents' bedroom, the corner next to the couch in the living room, the whole den, and lots of other places. You couldn't get her in there even if you died trying. Bessie would just not go in there. Period. One day my parents went to Kmart, which was only 10 minutes away, leaving Bessie and me alone in the house for the very first time. I was 7 at the time, and I wasn't really scared because I've been home alone a lot of times, just not in this house. It was Saturday morning, so I turned on the television and watched cartoons when all of a sudden, the television turned off by itself. The remote was lying on the other side of the couch. The television was new. My mom got it just 2 months ago, so it couldn't have been broken already. The sun was out, but it was just really windy, so I figured it was probably the wind. But when I switched on the lights, they were just fine. I wasn't really scared, just surprised, really. Mostly because when I was 7, I didn't really know what ghosts were. I wasn't in a hurry to turn the television back on and decided I was going to play some computer games in my dad's office. And that's when I heard it. The music. I'm sure all of you have heard those birthday cards that play happy birthday when you open them. That was the kind of quiet, soft music that was playing. I checked to see if the television was on, but it wasn't, so I checked if the music was coming from my dad's computer. It wasn't. I checked the entire house, but the music was everywhere surrounding me. I just stood in the middle of the room staring into space, too scared to move. Thankfully, I heard the sound of squeaking brakes outside, which meant my parents were home. I looked out the window to see my dad's purple minivan in the driveway, and then the music stopped just as if someone had pressed the stop button. After I helped my mom unpack all the groceries and other stuff, I told her what happened while she was gone. She just gave me a look, which meant, stop imagining stuff and please get serious for once. And then she said that my imagination is way bigger than me, which is true. I always had a huge imagination. I was the girl who believed that there was a monster in her closet and under her bed, that her toys had conversations when she wasn't looking, and lots of other stuff, but I wasn't imagining anything. I know what I heard. But what was it? And where was it coming from? Happy birthday to me. I can remember the first time, 30 years ago, when I had a feeling of pure terror hit me like a freight train. It was my birthday, May 18th, 1980. I was outside running around with my friends, playing freeze tag and waiting for my mom to bring out the Raggedy Ann cake. I just rounded the corner of our backyard, and my brother was hot on my tail after I doused him with the water hose that was being used to fill up my pool. Anyways, I felt it burning just above my belly button, and I initially thought it had just been snagged by the large grapevine my mom insisted on keeping when we moved in. I looked down to see if I was bleeding, and upon further inspection, learned that I was fine and didn't need to scream bloody murder after all. I tried to walk it off, but I had this feeling of pure terror. Even worse than when you break something and know full well you're going to be in big trouble. My head started to hurt and I began to cry. I couldn't figure out why I felt so scared, but deep down I knew something was happening. I sat there crying for a few minutes and the feeling just subsided and I slowly felt okay again. I didn't have time to say anything to my mom or anyone else because a few minutes later she rounded everyone up and brought out my cake, with my dad tailing behind listening to his boombox radio. Just as the chorus of Happy Birthday began, I again felt the same feelings I described above. I took in a breath and thought for sure I was dying. Right there during my birthday party, I started to panic and I knew I needed to tell my mom that something was wrong, but I didn't have the chance. My dad pulled my mom aside and whispered something to her ear. And she told everyone to get inside and we would finish the party inside. I was trying to ask my mom why we had to go inside when I heard the guy on the radio say that everyone near Mount St. Helens was in immediate danger, as the mountain had been making noise for a few months now. But it had been in fact just blown. We lived north of the mountain and the news was saying that ash had been blown straight up and had fanned as it headed our way. My dad flipped on the TV and all we could see were people trying to run through thick ash, cars covered with what looked like thick gray snowflakes. Each time I looked at the people on the TV, I could feel their terror, their sorrow, their anger, or happiness at making it to the cover. I couldn't explain it to anyone at the time, but it was almost like I was right there with them experiencing those feelings. Almost like a switch being flipped from happy, sad, relief, and back again. We stood at the window and watched thin wisps of ash fall all around the yard. And as it was falling, I could see people walking around out there. I asked my mom why they could be outside and why we couldn't. But she told me not to be silly. There was no one out there. And as soon as they appeared in the ash, they were gone. I'm still not sure if they were ever there to begin with, but all I can say is that I saw them, and it was just as plain as day. The day passed pretty much as uneventful as a mountain blast could make it, and everyone left for home. As I was getting ready for bed that night, I began seeing flashes of things that I know I had never experienced. I was standing on the porch of a cabin, looking up at the mountain, and all of a sudden I saw the top of it blow off, and I was thrown back up against the front door of the cabin by a forceful wind. As I tried to get up, I saw the ash raining down on my cabin, and then the mud racing towards me, and that's as far as I ever got. And the next one, I was helping someone take their groceries out of the car and heard what sounded like a bomb blast, followed by an earthquake. I grabbed the cart to steady myself and looked up to see all kinds of ash raining down on me, and as I tried to make my way back inside the store, I was hit by a car. I started to cry a bit, and laid down in the hopes that I could go back to sleep and it would all stop. I got up in the middle of the night to get some water, and when I started back to my room, I saw a guy standing in my doorway asking for water. He was older and dressed in overalls of some type and a long-sleeve flannel shirt. He said his throat was dry from all the ash, and he just needed a drink until he could make his way back to his cabin. Needless to say, I screamed my lungs out. For sure, this old man was going to swipe me off into the night. My dad came running, and when I told him, he scolded me for waking the dead without my nonsense. I went back to my bed with a sore butt, but back to bed anyways. In the morning, I awoke to see that we had a light coating of ash during night, and ran downstairs to see if we could play in it. When I came into the living room, the news was talking about a man named Harry Truman, who lived in the blast zone and wouldn't leave. He was the owner and caretaker of a lodge up Mount St. Helens. He died that day. Then his picture flashed on the screen, and I screamed and told my dad that was who I saw in our hallway last night. He yelled at me for lying and sent me back to my bed I had just come from to think about what lying makes me look to others. It was a good long while before I ever voiced anything I saw to anyone. Not only was I scared that I would be made fun of, but how do you tell people you saw a ghost of an old man in your hallway on your birthday? I will always remember that birthday. And every time someone asks my birth date, I am reminded of the events of that day when they ask how old I was when Mount St. Helens blew. I'm not sure why Mr. Truman came to me that day, or if it was really him that I saw. I have a hard time being around people who are very emotional. It's almost like I experience it along with them. I see people here and there, like if I'm passing a cemetery or an older house, I can see them as they died or as they lived. And I can almost always feel their emotions as I pass by. I'm not sure if they want recognition, that someone sees them, or if they don't notice me at all. We have a resident ghost at our house. My husband's father. He passed away there in his favorite easy chair after sending everyone out to get coffee. He says it's because he didn't like being stared at in life, and he didn't want people staring at him as he died. I do have a few select people that I share things with, and my husband knows a little also. I guess I just feel like no one can really understand what it's like unless it's happened to them. Make no mistake, it's not at all like Ghost Whisperer. I've never communicated like that with them and have never had to try to disrupt anything. They're just there. Every day. I do hope that someday they can find the peace they need to move on, and everyone deserves that much.